start with, you can see the agenda slide, and what we'd like to do is to frame up the context of what different solutions are even out there. We want to give you an idea for probably the most common that we see come up that different groups have utilized. And we'll share a little bit about the benefits of those and give you an understanding of what that looks like, the context. And then we want to kind of deep dive into each of the different solutions that we see most commonly and explain why there's some shortfalls in each one of those, some of the challenges. So if you've got a pen and paper and you want to write some of these metrics down, this might help really frame up what we're looking to help you understand. So if we were to say that there's a given organization that company XYZ, and they've got an accounts payable team, and we'll call it a team of 12. You got a manager and a supervisor and 10 data entry clerks. And this organization processes about 10,000 invoices a month, give or take. All manual. They have a series of choices to get better. And we'll talk through each one of these in that context to help you see what the benefits are of each of those, and maybe what it translates to into a couple key metrics that we're going to talk about throughout this presentation. The first is cost per invoice. This is what typically executives will look at. What is the cost per invoice for processing today? And then if I go with a given solution, what does that translate to? A key metric, but not the most important. What we want to frame up to you is the most important is straight through processing. Might be a new phrase to some of you. Hopefully some of you have heard of this. This is something we talk about all the time as we meet with people. How efficient is your organization? How much straight through processing are you experiencing with your given strategy for automation? So if today, let's say it's 10,000 invoices, you got a team of 12, we'll focus on the 10 data entry clerks because that's where we want to improve. Let's assume that it's maybe a $10 per invoice metric. CFO, controller, this is kind of what they'll be looking at, head of finance. What are we spending to be able to process this key business function? The first step now, and so that's the metric for price per invoice, we'll call it, or cost per invoice is $10. And straight through processing today for that XYZ organization is 0% straight through, meaning every invoice that comes in is touched by somebody. It's part of the process. This organization may look at outsourcing first, and we'll talk about what that is and the benefits of that. So you've heard probably BPOs, business process outsourcing organizations. Typically, they're in other countries that have labor at a lower cost. And the benefit there is you get to reduce your cost per invoice. And it's pretty straightforward and it's pretty immediate. And so you could probably go, again, depending on who you partnered with for that function, you could maybe see that $10 per invoice in call it a $6 or $7 per invoice. You get an immediate reduction, but your straight through processing hasn't changed. There's still people touching every single invoice. They're just less costly people. And you probably still have those 10 clerks. They just happen to be in a different country. There are some drawbacks to that, and we'll talk about that. But just as a first step, that's something to consider. If an organization wants to be a little more technical and take on a challenge of an OCR opportunity, this would be where OCR, optical character recognition, this is where you would bring on to your organization a software solution that will read the PDF files that you would take. So your invoices come in how they normally come in. They're still paper, but you will be able to have this technology, be it through templates that you set up or artificial intelligence that you have in place. It'll be able to read what's on that PDF. So it'll recognize those characters. And the benefit there is that you've additionally reduced your cost per invoice beyond what outsourcing can do. And you've moved away from this 100% manual. You've now adopted technology. You've moved away from manual file storage, making it easier to search and to archive. And you've kind of moved into that world of higher tech. And this is where most organizations, when they wanted to really pursue a true automation source, kind of went in this direction. Your cost per invoice is going to be and I'll caveat this, we'll talk about it more a little later, but it'll come down below outsourcing, but you're going to be in that, $3 or $4 or $5 per invoice, and you may hesitate because some of you may have OCR and you're like, well, I can get that for 50 cents an invoice. Well, that's maybe for the software, but you're going to see there are some complexities that come to be able to fully implement an OCR solution, and then to be able to manage and navigate that. So you're probably going to be in that, call it $4 or $5 range, and your clerks went from maybe the 10 initial clerks to probably half. You're still going to have some errors and some exceptions. Then you'll need people to work those out. You'll need to be able to work some of those templates or the AI that's involved with the OCR. But you've improved straight through processing. In outsourcing, that significant metric didn't change. You went from 0 to 0. Now with OCR, you've got some invoices you're going to set up that they're going to come through straight through, and it'll be great. You're probably in that 40 to 50% straight through processing. The next we call it a little bit of a hybrid. This is where your company partners with a solution provider that's going to offer both the technology components, but also some data input from human indexers. So it's combining the two. You get basically that benefit is you're transitioning that AP knowledge that your team has into a documented, codified solution that's going to utilize OCR-like technology to pull a significant amount of data that's kind of easily ready to capture. Things like a purchase order or the vendor name or the contact information. So that data can come in much more quickly than actually keying it in. And then it incorporates a human element in that digitization process to be able to capture the variable data that comes in with an invoice. And suppliers are as different as can be, as are their invoices. And so being able to have that human element just gives you the highest accuracy possible. Now you're probably, you're going to have some exceptions. You're going to have some challenges. There's challenges in working out. We're going to talk in detail about that, but getting that tribal knowledge transitioned into that application or that solution, that's an effort in and of itself. And then, just even monitoring it with new suppliers coming in and out, you're probably, let's say our clerks came from 10 down to now maybe 3, and you're straight through processing much higher. You're probably in that 60 to 70% straight through processing, where you're only touching the more challenging invoices. And then finally, supplier portals. Now, this is where your company would partner with a solution and service provider that will offer you a robust supplier portal along with some professional resources and support to be able to onboard suppliers and help them to have the best self-service invoicing experience possible. Lots of benefits here. Some challenges to get there, and we'll talk about those, but the benefits really, you are now fully maximizing your cost per invoice and your straight through processing. This is best in class. you are probably getting to where there's no data entry needed. So you've eliminated all manual entry. No need for those AP clerks, and your straight through processing is 90% plus. Highly engaged, highly robust. You've got technology with upfront PO matching, PO flips, dispute resolution, status inquiry, and more. Suppliers have full visibility into the status of their invoice, so they don't need to be calling AP asking, where's my invoice? How come it's delayed? How come it's missing? That upfront matching allows for a collapse of that gap between the buyer and the supplier. It really kind of removes that need for a middleman. It gives that self-service experience that drives quick invoicing and very inexpensive.